Hello again, everyone. I told you that I wanted to look at a couple of examples of the second generation activity theory, so I want to go ahead and spend this video doing that with you. So what we're going to do is kind of just fill this out as you might on your own with the visual organizer that I've posted onto Blackboard. And we're obviously going to, we can use this for a number of things, to analyze a number of situations or environments. And this semester, we've talked a lot about the fact that we're focusing on the tool of writing. Okay, so last time I mentioned to you that wherever you come in on this triangle is going to change your answers for the rest of them, because wherever we come in is going to affect all the other pieces. So let's go ahead and, well, first of all, we want to start with our activity system. Let's name an activity system. So I have a couple of examples here of some things that we looked at in my class last semester. So one of them was the activity system of the family farm. Family farm. If you are from this area or you're familiar with this area, you know that this is a pretty common way to make a living around here. Maybe not as popular as it used to be, but there are still a lot of family farms around here. So let's let this be our activity system. So what kinds of writing do we find in the family farm business? There might not be any that come to mind right away unless you are familiar with this activity system yourself. So let's think about some practical pieces of writing that farmers encounter. One might be a receipt for a piece of equipment. Okay. Okay, we might have a receipt for a piece of equipment. This is the one that we're going to use in our example, but we could probably list some others if we wanted to build some more context for ourselves. There are many pieces of writing that farmers encounter, practical pieces of writing. So throughout the year, I'm going to have lots of different receipts for different pieces of equipment that I've bought, probably. I'm going to have to fill out a tax form. So those tax documents are pieces of writing that I come into contact with, or if I have to keep a budget, then I might have a budget plan, or if I'm doing some bookkeeping to keep track of my expenses, then I might have those pieces of paper that I have to keep up with. Other kinds of receipts, it could be all kinds of different things. And I do not act within that activity system, so I would have to really do some research probably to fill out some more of those different pieces. So hypothetically, let's stick with our receipt for now. So we could just go from there and work our way around this triangle again. So what are the objectives of a farmer? With this tool, what does this help this farmer accomplish, right? Depends on what piece of equipment the receipt was for. Or we might, focus on the tax returns. That might give us a more focused objective. We wouldn't have to think about a specific piece of equipment then. So what's the objective for the tax return? Right? To report income, to stay legal, to get tax write-offs, maybe to get a refund, these kinds of goals, right? Alright, so if we're thinking about this piece of writing here, there could be all kinds of objectives for doing that, right? For the farmer and for some outside community members, which we'll talk about in just a second. So, division of labor. What does this document say about where this farmer falls into rank? Now, this is a particular kind of activity system where, by the time we get to the subjects, who's here? First of all, we have to think of who's here. Maybe we might scoot over here if this is easier to fill in or think about first. So who's here? We got the farmer. Right? He's going to be our main subject in this scenario, right? Now, Maybe the farmer has a wife or a husband. Maybe the farmer has some children. Those people would also be involved with this tax return that goes for the farm. But our main focus is going to be on the farmer. So I'm just going to list him right now. So who else is involved? We might think about that too. If we're thinking about the farmer, who else is involved? Maybe the accountant, right? The accountant, or maybe even the IRS. These are some outside people that are going to affect the way that this tax return gets filled out and finished. Right? So they don't really act within the activity system of the family farm. But if we're taking a look at this particular document and we're thinking about these particular goals, and we would have to say who outside is going to help us accomplish these goals. So it's going to be the accountant who probably works within the activity system of his accounting firm. Or it's going to be the IRS, that is the organization that takes care of all this tax stuff in the first place. Okay, so if we, like when we looked at our green part in our last video, we said first we would want to start off by listing the subjects. We've done that. Second, we want to add the community members. We've done that. Now we're going to rank them in hierarchy. Okay, and you have to decide, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it by who makes the most money? Or how important they are to the completion of this document or the use of this tool? Or do you want to do it by, some other hierarchy? You have to think about that too when you're trying to fill in this division of labor piece. Okay, so for this one, we might say there's this whole chain of people that are involved in making this tax return happen. So first of all, maybe this receipt for the equipment is actually being written off on the tax return. So these two documents can be related too. That's another thing you might think about. What kinds of other documents am I going to need to meet this objective? Right? So these two documents are very closely related. I need the first one to complete the second one. Okay. So who's making this happen? First of all, we bought that equipment for the receipt that's being used on the tax return. So we have the supplier of the equipment. We could add that to our community list too. Equipment supplier, right? So as you can see, you can kind of go back and forth with these fill out pieces as you need. I know I said that you can kind of work your way around the triangle, but as our example is showing us, we might kind of skip around a little bit, and that's okay. So for our division of labor, we're going to maybe put the equipment supplier first. Let's rank them in the order that they are present in making this document happen. So the first person is going to be the equipment supplier. He's the one that gave me the receipt. So the supplier of the equipment. And then the farmer is going to be the next one that comes into contact with that. So the farmer is going to be next. And then the farmer is going to take that stuff to the accountant. We're getting a little squished down here, but we've got supplier, and then farmer, and then the accountant is the next one that gets hold of the documents, the paperwork involved in making this tax return happen. And then after he fills out all the paperwork, who does he send it to? The IRS, right? So that's going to be the last person in our hierarchy. Okay, so there's our division of labor part. I hope that you can see that all right. So supplier, farmer, accountant, IRS. This is where our document is born. This is where our document dies, essentially, even though, it doesn't really die. Although sometimes the IRS can make us feel like we want to die, right? Okay, so which pieces are we still missing? Looks like we just need to think about the rules, right? So why does the farmer even need to fill out the tax return in the first place, right? To meet these objectives, right? But what's the etiquette involved, right? There's a time limit, right? So there's a due date for filing that return, usually around the middle of April, right? If that rule is broken, there are consequences, right? What other rules might we have? Right? The information has to be very accurate, right? So accuracy is important, right? And that's expected. If it's not, the IRS is going to come knocking on your door or calling your accountant, right? So you don't want that to happen. All right, that's one example of how we might fill out this visual organizer. And so what I want you to do is to try to do something like this on your own too. Take that handout that I've posted on Blackboard that is the blank version of this, right? And try to figure out how can I fill in each of these pieces. And then take those questions and think about how all of these things are related. Those questions will help you fill out these different areas too. Alright, so that's one example of the activity system, filling in all the parts for second generation with the example of the family farm. Alright, let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you next time.